Hello! I have a bucket of tea and a new package to open. Let's get into it, I can't even wait. So before I get too far ahead of myself, Lindsay the Frugal Crafter a few weeks ago announced that she had done a collaboration with a company called Craftamo, and she had come out with a new line of watercolor brushes. I just had to get them, and they have arrived today. So let's take a look at them, shall we? Oh wow, that's pretty. So the Frugal Crafter is a channel I watch regularly, and Lindsay has even watched a few of my videos, which amazes me. So hi Lindsay, if you're watching, I just had to get this set of brushes as a small thank you for watching some of my videos and commenting on them. That has just been amazing, and the brushes looked really lovely when I was watching her channel, so I've paid for these with my own money, and this is going to be a purely non-biased review. So first things first, I shall peel the plastic off and we'll have a closer look at this lovely box. Oh yes, that's much better. I love the shiny lettering though, that's pretty. So Lindsay did design the cover as well. These are her original paintings. It is so gorgeous. I really love the packaging that it comes in. And there's a small flower on the back. I had a bit of a look at this company, and I'll list everything in the description below so you can check them out as well. They have done quite a few collaborations with different artists, and I hope one day that perhaps I will be a big enough channel to do a collaboration with them too, because making a set of brushes sounds like so much fun. It looks like we have 6 watercolor brushes in here. I've got to figure out how to get into it without ruining it. Okay, it's actually got a magnet on there, so that just makes it nice and easy to open. Yay! And inside the box, we have this here. Our 100% cruelty-free brush hair provides the perfect amount of control and water absorption that Lindsay expects from her brushes. Combining this with recycled rose gold ferrules and burgundy handles has resulted in a stunningly unique brush set that delivers exceptional performance. Now I will move this card out so we can see the brushes. I haven't looked at them either, so this is my first view too. And here they all are, beautifully packaged in this box. It's like a felt covered foam, and it feels really nice actually. I don't like to take them out and ruin them. They'll never go back in as perfectly as they are now. So we have a 1-inch flat brush, a number 12 round, that is a big brush, I like that one. A 1/2-inch cat's tongue. This is quite an unusual shape, and it's definitely one I've been wanting to try. Then there's a 3/8-inch dagger. 3/8, I cannot say that word. We do not use inches, and it's so confusing for me. But there we go, we have a dagger. And then there's one which is buried quite deep in here. This one's a number 8 round, always a really handy size to have. And it looks like another tiny one. And this is a number 1 rigger. So these are the ones that have the really long points, and you can drag them to make a nice long line. So that's a really interesting set of brushes. I like the rose gold on them, and I also like the burgundy handle. Red's always a favourite colour of mine, so that's a really nice colour combination. That does not want to come off. I'm probably going to have to rip it. What a shame. But the thing with these, I find, is that once they come off, they shouldn't ever go back on anyway, because it can damage the bristles, so I'm just going to chuck these in the bin. There always has to be some sort of plastic in these things. Oh my gosh, there we go. Got that tube off. So yes, I just don't really like to put that back on once the brush has been used. It's okay while it's in this form, because I think it has got a little bit of sizing or something just to keep it together, and they will need to be rinsed in water first. There we go, they're all out. So there are 4 with the golden colour Taklon, and then 2 with the black, presumably Taklon as well. I said before in another video recently that I had a natural hair animal bristle brush, and they do act a little bit differently to something that is synthetically made. But having said that, some of the more modern synthetic brushes are actually designed to be a lot better with holding water, so I'm really curious to try these out. I have a feeling that these 2 are going to hold more water. I find that the black bristles seem to do that. I have some others which are like that. I think these are like imitation squirrel, if I am not mistaken. I'm totally guessing. I probably should do some more reading up on these brushes. I have some other brushes that are like this golden Taklon, and they've been very good as well. This is such a gorgeous box, but I'm not too sure how practical it's going to be to keep the brushes in it, especially when the brushes get wet and then you've got to wait for them to dry before putting them back in. The other thing is this foam is just a little bit difficult on these ones, so I think I might put the box aside for now. I have somewhere else I'm going to store these gorgeous brushes. I got this leather brush holder ages ago and I haven't actually got anything in it, so now is a good time to put these brushes in, I think, because there is just enough room for all of them. I tested it out beforehand. All of the brushes fit in there quite nicely. This one has to go here because these ones are just a bit too small for this handle, but I managed to fit them all in. This is also a pretty chunky one as well. It's like this brush set was made for this holder, except that one's just a tiny bit tall, but there we go, it's in. And there's also this little pocket here, which I have also discovered fits in one of these paint tins perfectly. Look at this. How cool is that? And then the whole thing wraps up and it looks really good. It sits a lot better actually with the paint tin in there, so I'm going to keep my Lindsay brushes in this beautiful brush roll that I bought and have not known what to do with. So they look really pretty in here with those lovely red handles and the rose gold ferrules. So now I think what would actually be a really good test is to get these brushes wet and paint with them. I have two lots of water here. This one is clean water, which I'm going to use for actual painting, but I thought I would first wet the brushes in this jar of water because there is going to be some glue on the brushes and I really want to take all of that out without making the other water yucky and then painting with it. So I always think it's a good idea to rinse the brushes properly first. Normally I'd probably stand at the tap and just let the water run, but for the purposes of this video I'll use a jar and let's dip it in. It's maiden wetting. You can see when I'm pushing on it that there's quite a lot of stiffness in the brush, and that is due to that glue. It does take a little while to work the water through. It's already loosening up though, and you can see how much more pliable it is already. So you really want to get rid of all of that yuckiness out of the brushes before painting with them. I will be rinsing these at the tap off camera just to take out any excess as well. This one's got such a fine point. I'm a bit scared of bending it too much, so I'll be quite gentle with it. Sometimes it's better to use the side of the jar. That's a lot softer now. All freshly rinsed. It looks like they're holding a lot of water, which is really great. I'm pleased to see that because you always want to have a brush that's nice and juicy rather than one that is really miserly when it comes to holding paint. Those are saturated at the moment, so I'll probably just dab them with a tissue, and I'm dripping all over my desk here. Now to get into the old Etcher sketchbook and test these brushes out. To make it more interesting, I artfully arranged the brushes with a lovely blue bow and I drew them out in pencil, and I'm inking over the top with one of those Etcher fountain pens that have been featured heavily on my channel. That's because they're on my desk and I've been using them so that I don't have to empty the ink out and clean them. I'm far too lazy for that, but they're also working really well and the ink is excellent too. It's waterproof, so it won't lift when I add watercolour on the top in a little while. I'm afraid the drawing isn't quite as proportionally correct as I would have liked. Those handles could be longer. These are kind of shorter chibi versions of the paintbrushes, and then I'm using the thicker lined pen just to add in some line depth just for variation because I felt like it needed it, and rubbing all the pencil off. Then I'm writing out Lindsay's brushes up the top so I remember what they are in future. I'm just using this Schminke tin today because it has nice big full pans and it will be easy to get those big brushes on here. Let's get painting, my favourite part. Let's just take a moment to appreciate this flat brush. Oh yeah, that was so satisfying. I was just pretty much testing out the brushes to see what marks I can make with them, and I used different colours so that I can match the marks up with each brush. Now we're going in with this 3/8 dagger, and you could see a totally different line variation here. It's quite interesting, and annoyingly the magenta wasn't painting out quite as dark as that blue, but this seems to be quite a good one for making little petals. It makes some really thin lines too, and I need a lot more practice with it because I'm not very good with the dagger style brushes. This cat's tongue is also a really interesting one and makes a beautiful petal shape. Also, you can get some thin lines with that really fine point on the end. So that's another useful one. I could see why Lindsay likes it. Round brushes are definitely a go-to for my paintings, and I'm not sure that I had a 12 brush in my other brush collection. I think I've got a 10 and possibly a larger one, but definitely that is going to be a welcome addition. A number 8 round is always a super useful brush. You can get a nice line variation with these as well, and they're just a really general go-to brush, which I recommend everyone should have. Oh, this rigger, it was a lot harder to use. I really don't have any in my watercolor brush collection of high quality, but I got the hang of it. It does make some beautiful lines, and I am looking forward to using that a lot more in the future. So on with this painting. Gosh, what a mess I made of it. I don't know, it was like I was just feeling really rusty because I haven't painted for a while, and it turned into a bit of a mess, but I was pretty much just trying to paint the colours of the brushes. The rose gold colour that I made does not look anything like it should do. I just couldn't figure out which colours to mix together. But aside from my ineptitude, these brushes on first impression are very nice indeed. I'm really liking them so far. Can we tell I've had a break from painting? This was so hard, I've made such a mess of it. It's like I've forgotten everything. Anyway, I'll let it dry. I might fix it up once it's dry and go over it a little bit more, but I think I'll do another painting on the other side and come up with something. I have no idea yet what I'm going to paint. I will think about it over lunch. I'm also really hungry, so that doesn't help. Oh gosh, that is not rose gold at all. Never mind. It kind of looks like paintbrushes. To make life a bit easier on myself, I did a cheeky trace of a jaguar, which I found off Pixabay, and I didn't bother adding in all of the markings. I just did the basic outline, and I started off painting the background with the flat brush. This brush is excellent. It holds a lot of water, and I was able to paint out my colours very easily. They spread well in water, and no issues there. It's such a useful brush to have for painting large areas, and you can get a really nice flat wash with it as well when the colours are nice and even. You can see there's a big drying shift, and all of my tape had peeled off as well, so I just took it all off, and I will come to that background quite a bit later, but I just started to paint the jaguar instead, and I'm using the cat's tongue brush for it because I figured that was the most appropriate. Also, it's the one I was quite curious about using, and I have to say I'm really impressed with it because as well as getting thin lines, you can also use the side of it to paint larger areas, so it's quite a versatile brush. So basically what I did here was start off really light and then slowly build up the colours and layers. Mostly raw sienna and burnt umber for the jaguar itself. It could possibly be a leopard, but it's labelled as a jaguar, so there we go, that's what it is. And then once it had all dried, I then went over with another layer, and I just kept doing this until I was happy with the colour. I'll be adding in all of the markings on top later. So I am really impressed with the quality of the brushes. Yes, they're synthetic, but they do hold an amazing amount of water. In fact, they were so juicy at times that I found it quite hard to control them. And look at that stupid piece of tape peeling off. It was like it just would not stick on. It was maddening. But going back to the combination of brushes that are in this set, I really do like it. There are a lot of larger brushes, which is great for doing loose paintings. The only thing I kind of wish it had was perhaps a number 4 round. I think that is more of a brush that I personally tend to use quite a lot of for doing details, but this cat's tongue and the dagger brush were okay for that because at least they have a finer point. And I finally got rid of that tape. I used Schmincke Payne's Grey for the darker areas, and I'm also using the Holbein paints because I didn't have in this Schmincke tin a nice burnt sienna or yellow ochre, so I just grabbed the other tin, and it's no problem mixing different brands of watercolour paints together. So going in with a bit more detail using the point of the cat's tongue, that's when I was kind of wishing I had a number 4 or number 2 round brush, but it's sometimes good for me to actually use some different brushes that I'm not used to and push out of my comfort zone a bit. The build quality of the brushes is excellent. There were no stray hairs or any hairs falling out, and all of the brushes easily retained their shape and point, even with a lot of water added. And as I mentioned before, they hold vast amounts of water and paint, so I would definitely consider these professional quality brushes. I so need to get a set of Becky brushes in the future. I went fairly loose with the Jaguar's markings and spots, kind of made it up, but I was following the reference photo to some extent, and I ended up using the round brushes for that. That number 8 brush is so good, it's such a useful size of brush to have. The only brush I really struggled with was the really thin rigger, and that's just because it does take a little more effort to control it. I tried painting on a bit of white gouache over the top of the Jaguar's ears because I've made a bit of a mess of those, but it was just being really frustrating, so I did actually end up using a white pen to add in some whiskers and things like that. I had hoped to use only the brushes, but the pen was just so much easier in this case. And I also went over the background again really carefully with another layer of green just to darken it up and make the contrast between the Jaguar and the background really stand out. This was easy to do because the etcher paper is extremely thirsty, and combined with very juicy brushes, it's so easy to get a lot of paint on there. I'm really happy with how this painting turned out, much better than the page on the left hand side. I'd warmed up by now and had remembered how to paint again. And I'm done. Let's just ignore those little bits up there, shall we? So these brushes are really nice. I like them a lot. Incredibly juicy. They're very, very saturated at the moment, so I'm just going to leave them on my desk to dry. It's going to take a while for them to fully dry, probably overnight. Leave them flat. Don't sit them upright because you don't want the water to go into these ferrules and mess with the glue. It's always really important to dry them flat, or you can dry them upside down, but I don't have anywhere to do that, so flat it is. So I'm glad I bought the brushes. I'm sure I'll be using them a lot more in future videos, just to remind you what they look like. Let's just ignore this drawing as well, shall we? This didn't turn out very well, but I really like the different shapes that the brushes were able to create. My painting doesn't really represent that as such. I mean, I could have painted some loose flowers, but I just really wanted to paint this jaguar, and sometimes I have to go with the creativity flow. I like the brushes. I think they're worth the money. They are a little pricey, but they are extremely good quality. I did not have any brush bits fall out of them, which is always a good sign of great quality, and they hold so much water and a lot of paint as well, so that's a really good thing. So I'll link them down below. I think they might be in limited quantity, so I don't know if they've sold out, but if they aren't, you might want to check them out, and I'm sure Lindsay would really appreciate having some purchases on her lovely brushes. So if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and click the subscribe button, and I will see you all again really soon in my next video. I hope you're having a great day. Take care out there. Swatch you later. Bye!